Okay, it's Sunday, which means against my better judgment, it's time to go to Reddit and see what we can find in this hive of scum and villainy. So I've been to the Overwatch University subreddit ahead of time and just scraped all the questions off the first couple pages, and we're going to answer them now while Dragon Ball FighterZ plays in the background, because it's a better game than Overwatch. And if you're wondering which side I'm on, just look for whichever side started with Android 21. It'll be very blue also. So, first up is, does D.Va have any purpose at all in the current meta? There's a couple questions like this. So, currently, double shield very strong, which makes D.Va a little bit worse. But, well, a fair bit worse. But, here's the thing, is that some maps require a lot of high ground control. And D.Va's gonna be good for that. If you've got to dive snipers and they're not playing with the team, D.Va's good with that. And if they pick heroes that are like, their ultimates are easily countered by defense matrix, D.Va's good then as well. If they've got a Pharah, D.Va's good, you know? So, it's not like D.Va is blanketly useful. She's much more niche than she was, which is probably good, because D.Va was pretty much like the best off-tank you could pick in almost any circumstance previously. But now she's got more specific uses, which is better overall, I think, but, you know, it sucks that, especially, D.Va's a very popular hero as well, so it is unfortunate, but the way of things. So yeah, she does still have a purpose. Maps like, if you're attacking, like Watchpoint Gibraltar, then D.Va's gonna end up probably being pretty good, because there's a lot of high ground to control on that in the first two checkpoints. Numbani, same deal, you know? King of the Hill maps in general, much more like deathmatch than anything else, really. D.Va tends to do well in that kind of circumstance as well. So she does have uses, they're just much more niche than they were previously. But those are basically the reasons you'd pick her. It's just, you know, 2 shields is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So next up is, what is Lucio's role in this meta? And why would I pick him? So, Lucio, speed boost is still god tier, right? Like, it's still a fantastic ability. Especially if you're playing against some really static defenders, like Orisa. Lets you get in there on those boys real fast. Sound barrier, still good, especially versus burst damage ultimates, like Sigma's ultimate. And Moira's become much more, popular recently. The thing is that Moira is only good at peeling for herself, so Lucio can help counter that a little bit by being able to peel for the rest of the team as well. Sort of make up for some of the utility that Moira lacks, you know? But speed boost is always going to be good. It's always going to be a good ability. In an FPS, any kind of ability that makes you move faster tends to be very good, and Lucio's is like potentially team-wide, right? So it's very good. And he's also got one of the only defensive ultimates in the game, which means, you know, he'll end up being pretty good a lot of the time. Basically, he and Zenyatta get to have a special place of being some of the only defensive ultimates in the game. So that always is going to give them a little bit of a boost compared to other heroes. And currently, I would say that Lucio's better than Zenyatta currently, because Zenyatta, if there's a lot of shields in the way, it gets inconvenient for him. He's less good versus, like, big burst damage ultimates, because, hey, you can't survive, you can't get healed through being bursted to death, right? And the shields are going to be a problem for him. Though having shields on his team means he's a little bit safer, but I think most of the time Lucio's going to end up being better than him at this point. And, like, Discord is way less good when there's a bunch of shields in the way, you know? It makes it very hard. And, like, when one of them's Orisa, as one of the tanks is Orisa, putting Discord on Orisa and then she uses Fortify, it's like, why did I even bother, right? And now they're back behind all the shields again. Oh god, what a disaster. But Zenyatta's still really good for specific things as well, because, like, if they've got Nano Blade, then, well, Nano Blade doesn't necessarily save you from Nano Blade. If they've got Dragon Blade, Transcendence usually ends up being better than Sound Barrier. Not always. Sound Barrier is still, like, Genji isn't excited to see Sound Barrier, but it's a little bit better than Transcendence usually, unless there's an Ana on the team. Zenyatta's always going to be good versus, like, any kind of Graviton team, because Sound Barrier is no guarantee of saving you from Graviton Surge, and it never was, and it isn't now, so, especially if, like, they've got an Ana. So, wait, what am I talking about? I've lost my train of thought. This was about Lucio to begin with, and now I've started talking about Zenyatta. Yeah, so Lucio's still good. I think Lucio is, like, the best off support right now, to be honest with you, because he really fucks with static defenders, and God, when you're playing Sigma, and Lucio uses Sound Barrier, and you just look up at him, drop the beat in midair, it's one of the most depressing things in the world, dude. So, yes, that's what Lucio's role is. Being speedy and having Sound Barrier. The same it has basically always been. Plus Peel. Which is, it's also helpful to have, like, somebody that can help peel for teammates when you're probably playing a static-ish comp yourself, right? If you got shield versus shield. Usually having somebody that can help you is going to be help peel for people is going to be nice. So, next up is Doomfist needs a nerf, or just counters. So if we could just delete Doomfist, I think that'd be absolutely fantastic. And I'm only half joking. I think that Doomfist has, like, the strongest case for being deleted, or at least having a very massive scale rework, because I really don't see a way that Doomfist's ever going to be balanced so that he is, well, balanced. I don't think that's ever going to be the case. I think he's always going to be hilariously weak or hilariously overpowered. I don't think there's a middle point for Doomfist. There probably is a very specific range in which he would be balanced, but I think, why don't we just save some time and delete Doomfist? I think that'd be sick. He's also just a very unfun hero to play against, isn't he? You know? And you can say, well, so's Bastion or Widowmaker, right? True. The thing is that, like, Doomfist's really fucking easy. Like, you can be really bad at Doomfist and still, like, get away with a lot of shit, because it takes a very specific set of things to counter Doomfist, right? Which is a question about later. And right now, like, the things that counter Doomfist are not especially popular, because Sombra's the big one, right? And Sombra is not so good versus the double shield meta that we've got going on. So, I mean, you can still play her, but when you've got, like, Symmetra running around as well, Sombra tends to struggle a little bit more. And she's, like, the big Doomfist counter, right? So, yeah. So Doomfist, right now, pretty good. Pretty good. And if you're all, like, huddled together behind your shields and Doomfist ults, oh no, what a disaster. Anyway, so, I mean, having more counters would be nice, because Doomfist doesn't have many counters. Because the thing is that, like, the thing is, though, I know that if they implement a hero that counters Doomfist, that hero will get nerfed before too long, because do you know what kind of hero is going to counter Doomfist if they add him? It's going to be a CC-heavy hero. That's what it's gonna be. So, if they add a hero that counters Doomfist, it's probably gonna be crowd control based, and what has the Overwatch community shown a genuine general dislike of? It's crowd control, isn't it? So, this is the other thing with the question, is it's like, I feel like any counter that gets added for Doomfist is gonna be like a band-aid fix on the situation, because it won't be long before everybody starts crying about the CC creep, and oh god, what a disaster. And bam, that hero gets nerfed, Doomfist gets to be good again. Ah, look at that. Isn't it funny how these things go? So, I think Doomfist needs a pretty hefty rework to make him easy to balance, basically. I don't see how it's gonna... I don't see how we're gonna reach a point where he's balanced. Because... like, to do what he needs to do, right, he's got to be able to kill someone really fast, or he's got to be really tanky, because that was the thing that really, like, took him up, because, like, he was really strong on release, because it was way too easy to, like, kill people one shot, and then he became hilariously weak for a while, and then they buffed his shield, and, oh, look, suddenly Doomfist's really good again. There was a little period in there where Sombra was really popular, and Bridget was still in the game, so... that curbed it a little bit, but as time goes by, oh no, all these things with crowd control are getting nerfed or falling out of favor. Bridget got deleted, and Sombra got nerfed and doesn't suit the meta. Oh god. I don't see how it's gonna work, personally. If you've got any ideas on how to fix or what to do with Doomfist, you know, I'd be interested to hear about it, because I just genuinely don't really see it, dude. So, next up is, carrying on from the last one, what counters Doomfist? So, the big counter for Doomfist is Sombra, because as soon as Doomfist is hacked, oh god, oh no, he's extremely upset about that one. Doomfist's like one of the most sad heroes to be hacked, so Sombra's the big one. Pretty much crowd control is like what you're looking for, and this is the thing as well, is that if you play certain roles, you don't really get to do much to counter Doomfist. Because if you play support, you get fucked by Doomfist on basically every hero except Bridget and Moira. And your team will probably yell at you for picking Bridget. And your team will yell at you for picking Moira, but that's just because the second they see you using your right-click on somebody, they cry, DPS Moira! The second they see you sip, the second they see a damage orb, they go, Moira! You gotta heal! Without fail. Anyway, so if you play support, those are your options. You get to switch to Moira and Bridget, and, like, that's it. But you're still not gonna deal with the Doomfist situation, right? Like, you by yourself, you aren't dealing with that Doomfist situation. And this is another thing with Doomfist, is he requires a degree of teamwork to usually be dealt with, right? Sombra can, like, fully kill Doomfist by herself, because once he's hacked, he's worthless, and he's really big. It's really easy to hit with an SMG, you know? But, like, even if you play DPS, right, which is the majority of people that are going to be countering Doomfist, because that's where we've got the crowd control, for the most part, right? That's where Mei is, that's where Sombra is, that's where McCree is. So, they're the ones that are going to counter it, but even them, like, if you're playing McCree, there is no guarantee that you kill that Doomfist, because if he's got shields on him when you stun him, like, you might not be able to kill him in time before he gets out of the stun. Because once he's out of the stun, it's all over, dude. He's fucking gone. He's fucking gone, dude. If you, like, stun him while he's in the air trying to punch somebody to death, which is probably what's happening, right? Like, you're probably... the first McCree is going to usually know about it is right after he's uppercut someone and is about to try and kill them. He's going to flashbang them. It's very hard to fan the hammer on Doomfist when you've stunned him out of the air. So it's very difficult. And if you're playing a tank, you get to pick Roadhog and pray. But again, if you're playing Roadhog, if that guy's got shields, you aren't killing him. You won't one-shot the Doomfist. It's already hard to one-shot, like, a 250... well, you can't one-shot a 250 health hero as Roadhog. You need to get the right-click, hook, left-click if you're gonna kill a 250 health hero. And even then, like, both of them need to be pretty decent shots for it to work as well. So, if Doomfist's got any amount of shields, if he's just got, like, 50 shields on him, it's not working anymore, you need help now. You're not gonna kill that guy. But anyway, as for the original question, which is what counters Doomfist, it's crowd control. So you get to pick, if you're a DPS, that's where you get the most options. You get to pick the big counter, which is Sombra. If you can play Sombra being quite a difficult hero to play by herself. Mei, though she's not as good as McCree or Sombra. Those are the good ones, basically, as far as the DPS go. Because, you know, crowd control's hard to come by these days. And if you're playing a tank, you know, you can play Roadhog, and that's your best bet. Otherwise, Orisa is going to be your next best bet, because Fortify can really fuck up Doomfist. You can use Halt to peel for allies, because as soon as he uppercuts, you can, like, Halt to fuck up his aim. Stuff like that. Sometimes you can halt him back out of his punch. That's always very fun, but it's going to be more luck than anything else if you get it. But those are basically your options for counters to Doomfist. You don't get a whole lot. And if you're support, yeah, you know, if you're playing like main healer as well, because the best one you can pick is basically Bridget. Though you need help to kill Doomfist, obviously, if you're playing Bridget. But if you're playing, like, the main healer, and the off healer has picked, like, Lucio, you really can't justify picking Bridget, right? So then your option becomes pick Moira and just hope that, like... Well, you'll probably be fine, because you have Fade, but just pray that, like, everybody else finds a way to deal with it, because you ain't gonna bring much to helping. You're just kind of saving your own hide. If you're playing tank, right, and the other tanks, the off tank, they're playing like Zarya, I can't pick Roadhog, I gotta just pick Orisa and like pray, pretty much, right? Yeah, so those are what counters Doomfist. It's not really a lot. It's not really a lot. So, next up, gonna have some advice on learning Sigma and or learning heroes in general. So I fucking hated this question on the subreddit, because I swear to God, Reddit's the most unhelpful collection of people in the world, right? Because I have reading comprehension, right? So I read this question, and I see that they're asking for advice on how to learn the heroes, how to learn heroes in general, and some advice for Sigma specifically, right? But Reddit, I look, there's 8 fucking responses, and I think it was 5 out of 8 or 6 out of 8 were just saying post a VoD, post a VoD, post a VoD, post a VoD, post a VoD. Is asking for like general advice here, right? Like what the dude is asking for is what's like the mentality I should take when learning how to play heroes, and for Sigma, learning Sigma specifically. You can answer these questions without a VoD. You can, in fact, answer those questions without a VoD. So, I just started the same video twice. God damn it. So, on learning heroes in general. So, Orisa's going to be, like, the easiest example of this. We're trying to figure out, like, what's the best case scenario for this hero, right? Like, what does this hero want to do? What kind of position does this hero want to be in? So, based off, like, their abilities and their weapon, right? So we look at Orisa, and we see that she is a slow tank, or a slow hero in general. She's got no mobility. She's got a shield that is cooldown gated, so she can't move it freely. And she's got an ability that makes her CC immune and damage resistant. She also has a weak or a soft crowd control that will slow people down, and an ultimate that requires being in a safe place to get any value out of, right? So we look at Orisa, and we can quite clearly divine that this is a hero that wants to be sitting in one place, creating a bunker around her teammates, right? Because she's slow, can't be doing anything fancy like Winston would be, right? Clearly not a diver, got no diving abilities. And her ultimate even, like, if the enemy team can see it at all, it's extreme risk of the bongo being broken. So then you can sort of figure out roughly what you're trying to do with Orisa, right? Which is sit a little bit further back than you would on someone like Reinhardt, because you don't want them to get up on top of you, because you don't have too many ways of getting them off of you. You're hoping that in them getting to you, they have to expend a bunch of resources, we've gotten to do some damage to them, and, you know, we've got some ultimates to fend them back. So, That's the sort of, you look at, basically you're looking at like the hero's abilities and you're thinking, what's like the best case scenario for this hero? And then you try to work towards that. Because we look at like Diva, right? And we see, alright, so this hero has no shield. This is a tank that's got no shield. It's got defense matrix, but it's a very limited resource. You don't get a lot of time out of it, so it can't be used in the same way that you would a shield. This hero is quite fast, right? They've got a movement ability that takes them pretty far, and they can use all of their weapons while they're going in at the same time. So this is a hero that does not want to be sitting in one place. This is a hero that wants to be contesting high ground defenders, wants to be trying to find people who are out of position to burst them down, because if I'm flying at someone and I got my rockets going and I'm shooting and I punch them with my body when I arrive, right, that's going to be a pretty beefy chunk of damage. And defense matrix, it's not like a shield or anything like that, but if certain ultimates, it'll absolutely counter completely, right? Zarya can completely eat Graviton. Pharah, it can stop her ultimate at least long enough that she's going to die in all likelihood, because Pharah is trying to kill people quickly. So, you look at that, fast hero, burst damage, no shield. This is a hero that's going to be going off, doing their own thing, trying to burst people to death, right? What can we think of a non-tank example? Alright, so, Soldier, right? So we look at Soldier 76, and we say to ourselves, so he's got a long-range weapon, he's got self-healing, which makes him fairly independent, and he's got sprint, which is not incredible mobility, right? Like, I'm not gonna just hop up to wherever I want to be, but if I need to cover a fairly sizable distance quickly, it'll get me there. And he's got a big, an ultimate that's going to punish people for being out of position, because Tac Visor is going to be a lot better if they're not around shields, and they're not around cover. So we look at that hero, and we think, long-range weapon, decent mobility. This is and self-sustain. This is a hero that we want to have, with a long-range weapon, we want him to be sitting off on the high ground. He can be by himself, doesn't have to worry about it, he can heal himself, he's pretty good. If somebody jumps on him, he can just run away from them. Biotic Field's a pretty good heal, and his ultimate is going to be a lot better if we have a really wide field of view, because that's going to make it it's going to make it harder for people to get to cover if I can just see more of the area in front of me, right? So, then we are, alright, so I should be trying to play long range and high ground, and if they jump on me, no big deal, dude. I can just sprint away. I can just use Biotic Field and try to, like, fight them in it, right? So, that's the kind of thing you look at. The abilities are going to be, like, the main thing that do it. The weapon does count into it as well, because if we think about, like, McCree in comparison to a Soldier, right? We go, extremely limited mobility, much shorter range, well, not much shorter range, shorter range weapon than Soldier, because McCree's fall-off damage, it kicks in much sooner. And he's got a stun that is relatively short range, and an ultimate that is going to be good for getting picks on people, but is quite slow, so they're going to have to kind of be fucking up, or I'm going to have to combo it with somebody to really get anything out of it. It could also just be used as area denial, because it is 6 seconds of a very scary place to stand. So we look at that and we go, alright, well, he's got limited mobility, so it's already going to be harder for him to get to the high ground. It's still cool if he can get to the high ground, because he has like a moderate ranged weapon. But he also wants to be playing closer to his team, because he's got crowd control, which means that he can help other people with flashbang, especially if they're getting dove by flankers, right? So he's going to be more inclined to play with his team just off of having flashbang, because it can help save a support's life, whereas Soldier hasn't got that kind of utility on him. The best he's going to hope for is putting Biotic Field down and bursting them down with Helix Rocket. McCree just fucking stops him in place and then fans the hammer at them. He's also got more limited mobility, so he can't as easily just leave the engagement if he doesn't want to be there. And he has to burst them to death. He doesn't have the kind of sustained staying power that Soldier does from Biotic Field. McCree has to kill them with Flashbang, and if a diver or flanker gets on him, he has to kill them in one volley, or he is suddenly way less likely to win the fight. So all of that shoves him to playing closer to his team, because that's where he's going to get... You're going to get no value out of Flashbang if you're standing in the same kind of places that Soldier is, and you're not going to get as much damage in either because you're a shorter range hero. So that's the kind of thing you want to think about when you're learning how to play a hero. Just look at their abilities and think, alright, so what does this make the hero want to do? How do I want to use this ability, best case scenario? And, you know, your gun will also play into this somewhat, but it's more often the abilities that are going to be the thing here. So, for Sigma, specifically, which was the other part of the question, so the biggest thing that people stumble with when playing Sigma to begin with is thinking of him as Orisa when you have to think of him as, like, Reinhardt. And he's somewhere between Orisa and Reinhardt, to be sure, because you don't go up and, like, melee them as Sigma, right? So he's already not Reinhardt. But you have to apply the same kind of mindset with his shield as you would with Reinhardt's, because it's the same thing, dude. It's the same thing. It's a pretty beefy shield that can be moved very rapidly and only regenerates health while it's been taken down. So you've got to apply the same kind of mindset that you would with Reinhardt in regards to his shield, whereas most people, when they start playing Sigma, they think of his shield as being like Orisa's, where they just kind of set it and leave it there. You don't want to do that. You have to be thinking about it actively. Orisa is one of those heroes, you're trying to have that shield out there as much as possible, because you want your cooldown doing something. But Sigma's he's only getting his resource back when it's down. So you're trying to use his shield as little as possible. Because this is something they tell you with tanks in general, is try to have your shield up as much as possible. The trick is actually to have your shield up as little as possible. Orisa's a little different because she's cooldown gated, so you're trying to get as much value out of the cooldown as you can. Anytime your cooldown is ticking away, sitting at if your cooldown is available, if you can use it as quickly as possible after it becomes available, you are generally making better use of your resources, because if you're using your shield, if you're using your ability on cooldown or as close to as possible, you're just using your ability more often, which is good. It's like if you've got your ultimate, you want to use your ultimate as quickly as you can, because that means you get to start working on your next ultimate as quickly as possible, and getting to ult twice is a lot better than getting to ult once, right? So, that kind of thing. But Sigma's not that way. Reinhardt's not that way, because you have to take it down for it to regenerate. So bear in mind what your shield's doing, and just let less valuable shields than yours take the damage first, which is basically like if there's an Orisa or there's a Winston shield, let those take the damage first, because they are less important than yours, because they are cooldown gated, softer, and can't be moved. So they are less important than yours. You let them take damage first, and then you use yours to cover while those are down, right? Whereas Reinhardt, if you're with Reinhardt, it's going to kind of depend on what the Reinhardt's doing. If the Reinhardt's constantly moving in front of your barrier to take the damage first, then just let him do it instead. Because his barrier on paper is more important than yours is, but it depends what the Reinhardt player's doing. So if he's always going in front of it, let him do it first. Otherwise, you try and do it first. Have your shield take the damage first. So that's the big thing with Sigma. The other thing is your ultimate is not very good by itself, especially if they have heroes like Lucio on their team, or heroes that can just like get themselves out of sticky situations, right? If they've got Moira, Mei, these kinds of people, they can just kind of be fine. You know, they can just kind of get out. If they've got Orisa, right, they can just get out of Gravitic Flux. So your ultimate Gravitic Flux ends up being better as a combo ultimate, or just to engage a fight. But either way, both of those things are going to require your teammates doing something else, right? So don't, like, use Gravitic Flux, float up, and just expect to get, like, a quintuple kill with it. That's unlikely to happen, especially if they have Lucio. So think of it more as like a combo ultimate or an engaging ultimate, rather than like a I'm gonna get play of the game ultimate, which is, you know, that's like Dragon Blade, right? So those are like the big thing is really the shield in terms of using Sigma. I can't think of any other like beginner advice for Sigma. Try to save the rock. Don't a lot of Sigmas like to do this, where they're like throwing there's a shield in front of them, so they left click, and then as soon as they've left clicked, they throw a rock. Like, just like animation cancel to throw a rock. It's not adding a whole lot of damage to the situation, and you just use the really important cooldown, because that's crowd control, bro. That's really good if that Doomfist comes over here and is fucking with Mercy, right? So don't just use the rock for damage. Try to think about what you're doing with this cooldown and try to actually get, like, more value out of it. And don't just, like, chuck it across the whole fucking field at people. It's unlikely to work. It's a pretty slow projectile, you know? So don't get too crazy throwing it super far. Don't, like, just use it to add a little bit of damage. Try to actually, like, get more value out of it. Try and stun somebody and fucking kill them with it, right? And here's one other thing, actually. Kinetic barrier. Is kinetic something? Fuck. I think it's kinetic barrier. It might be kinetic field. His absorb. His defense matrix. It's defense matrix, but it does stop Roadhog's hook. So that's important to know. If the Roadhog's making eyes at you, you can just absorb and it will block the hook. It makes no sense that it works that way, but it does work that way. So that's cool. Don't sweat the Roadhog situation. Eat that motherfucker's hook. That's basically what I got for Sigma in general, and that's the kind of mindset you should apply. See, Reddit? Look! I managed to talk for like 15 fucking minutes about that without a VoD. Motherfuckers, I swear it. Reading comprehension's a lost art. So next up is, what are the main differences between a gold player and a platinum player besides mechanics? To be honest with you, the mechanics are going to be roughly the same between plat and gold regardless. So the big thing that I think between those two is that when you're getting 2 gold, you only really worry about yourself and playing around the enemy team, right? Like, to start with, you just worry about yourself. You're trying to do what your hero is trying to do, right? And then once you get, like, to silver, you start worrying about what the enemy team is doing, because now that we're out of bronze, they might actually be trying to do something, like, salient. That's a weird way to phrase that. Something that might make sense, right? Now, it's still not necessarily going to make sense, right? If you've watched a fucking Grandmasters game, don't go expecting any of that to translate into your silver game. But they pose a more credible threat than they did previously. So now you're trying to worry about what you're doing and what the enemy team is doing. You're playing around yourself, your own hero, and the enemy team's heroes at this point. So and then when you're trying to get from gold to platinum, we expand it one step further. Now we start worrying about what our teammates are doing. Because we can't rely on shit when we're in bronze and silver, right? We assume our teammates are going to be just goldfish, right? Can't rely on them. Now that we're in gold, we can start relying on them to at least know how their hero works. So now we start trying to work with our teammates a little bit more. Instead of just playing around ourselves and the enemy team, we now bring our team into it as well. So we start worrying about things like comboing ultimates more, because they're less likely to be going in and doing it 1v6. We start thinking about comboing abilities more now. So, like, you know, comboing ultimates is an easy one. We can start thinking about comboing abilities, though. If we're playing Orisa, and there's a Roadhog, now we might start being able to get some halt hook action in, right? So we should be trying to halt people above shields. I mean, it's good to do in general, but now we're trying really hard to halt people over shields so that Roadhog can have an opportunity to hook them in. Stuff like that. Yeah, that's the main thing between Gold and Platinum for me, is worrying about your teammates rather than and you're still worrying about the other things as well, but you're bringing your teammates into the mix as well. Because this is the thing as well, this is the thing I don't like with a lot of advice that you get given when you're in low SR, because a lot of people say, just, if you want to get out of bronze and silver, just pick a DPS and hard carry the team. Like it's that easy, you know? Like a hero, like a player that's in bronze and silver is going to be able to play Widowmaker to a level where they can hard carry the game, right? Not particularly realistic. If you can, great, fucking ideal, right? But if you could do that, you probably already would have. You wouldn't be in the situation where you were wondering how to climb, right? So, if you're in low SR, we've expanded this question out a little bit now. If you're in low SR, don't listen to fucking Reddit when they say just pick a DPS and hard carry. Just pick Zenyatta and hard carry, right? Don't just pick Roadhog and hard carry, right? If you could, you probably already would have done by now. What you should do instead is pick heroes that have a really low skill floor, and just worry about learning the fundamentals of the game first, right? Like, if you are in bronze, you are just worrying about how to play the hero and how to use your ultimate. That's all you really need to worry about. Positioning is a crapshoot because, like, people are going to be all over the place. Positioning if you can, but you're mostly just worrying about, like, the fundamentals of your hero and your ultimate. And then, so when I say a low skill floor hero, also, what I mean is somebody that you don't need to have a lot of practice on that hero to be efficient on them, and they are going to be simpler on average as well. Like, Winston is a very low skill floor hero, because you don't need to know that much to play Winston well, and Winston has no mechanical requirement, really, until you get to high levels, then it gets a little bit more that way. But he's got no mechanical requirements, so you can spend less mental bandwidth worrying about how to play the hero as well, right? Because if you're in bronze and you're trying to play, like, Sombra or Genji, right? That's not a good hero to start with, because you need to think so much about just what you're doing on the hero, right? Like, you need to be worrying about, like, aiming, using your abilities properly so that you don't die. Like, you have to worry about this mechanical thing while you're worrying about learning the other, like, the more fundamental aspects of the game. So, because, like, knowing how to use your hero and your ultimate, you can apply those kinds of fundamentals across all heroes, whereas playing Sombra well is very specific to Sombra. So you're better off picking heroes where they're more general, they're easier to pick up, you don't need to be investing a lot of mental bandwidth in how to play this hero, you're just worrying about how to play Overwatch before you worry about how to play your hero. And then once you get to, like, Silver, now you're a little bit more accustomed to just the fundamentals of the game, right? You're more comfortable, like, if this was, like, your first FPS as well, you need to get comfortable, like, moving around in the space as well. Because you can always tell when this is, like, the first FPS somebody played, because their movement is always really stiff and rigid, right? Like, there's a lot of, like, stop, fully rotate body, then move around the corner, right? Like, that kind of stuff. So you need to get comfortable, like, moving in the space as well. And then, once you've gotten, like, out of bronze, basically, now you're probably well enough acquainted with the fundamentals of the game that you can start branching out a little bit more, because now you know basically how to play the game. You're a little more comfortable moving in space, you know, roughly what all the heroes are and what they do, you know, that kind of thing. And now you can worry about more like zeroing in on the things you want to play now that you've covered the foundation. Because if you're learning how to play the game as well, it's very important that you learn the fundamentals first, right? So I'm going to make a fighting game comparison here, mostly because the guy that I'm stealing this from someone also, but I think that they absolutely like nailed the process that you should have when learning how to play a game in general, but this was in reference to Street Fighter specifically. And if you're curious who I'm stealing it from, it was a guy called Gutex, quite famous in the FGC. So he said, he's like, if I'm teaching, and I'm going to paraphrase it, not an exact quote also, cover all my bases here. He says, if I'm teaching somebody who is completely new to fighting games or Street Fighter in general, then I'm going to make them play Ryu first. And the reason for that is, it's quite thematically fitting, because Ryu as a character is all about the fundamentals, but he makes the point that Ryu is the character the game is built around, right? Like, Ryu is absolute square one in the design of Street Fighter, and then everything branches out from Ryu. So it is important to pick him first, because if you pick a weirder character first, if you pick a hero like Dalsum, Dalsum's the stretchy guy, you know. If you pick Dalsum as your first hero, you're gonna end up learning the game through a really weird lens. It's more important to pick Ryu first because he's the fundamentals of the game. You will learn the mechanics of the game through him, and then once you're acquainted with those, you branch out and you start playing the heroes that you're more interested in playing, right? So that's what you should do with Overwatch as well. You should apply the same mindset. So you should pick someone like Winston, Soldier, McCree even. Because these are like, they're basic heroes. Even like Ana, Zenyatta. They're heroes that teach you the fundamentals of the game. They teach you how to use your abilities, they teach you how to position, and the exception of Ana, they're all pretty fucking easy to play, right? Like, there's a fairly wide margin for error on someone like Soldier, especially in lower SRs. Someone like McCree, you know, there's more margin for error on those heroes than someone like Widowmaker. So that got really away from what the original question was. But, you know, sometimes I start a train of thought and I'm gonna follow it through to the end, come hell or high water. I'm not one for making concise and salient points. That's just not me. So anyway, we're gonna move away from that one now. And we're gonna go to the last question of the week, which is, how can we effectively reverse power creep? So, the thing is that I don't think this is fundamentally possible to do. I think power creep is an inevitability of any kind of, like, iterative game like Overwatch, you know? Like a MOBA as well. Like, power creep's inevitable. And the reason for that is, it's two things. It's, first off, the newest hero has always got to be, like, in some way better or more exciting than the last hero, more unique than the last hero. They've got to be big in some way, right? They've got to have something unique about them. Sorry, bang the shit out of the table. They've got to, in some way, be exciting, right? Because, and just to prove a point, just imagine with me this hypothetical situation. Imagine Soldier 76 was not in the game at launch, right? And we had everything else exactly the same. We had the same other heroes at launch, minus Soldier, and all of the releases have happened in order still, so Sigma being the most recent release. Can you imagine if they released Sigma and then released Soldier 76? Would that not be extremely disappointing? Would you not just be like, they're just gonna add Assault Rifle, man? They're adding Call of Duty to Overwatch? Right? Right? So, we want to avoid that, don't we? So that means that the new hero's always got to be in some way weirder, or some way more exciting than the last one, or at least comparable, right? Because you could say, like, Ashe isn't particularly exciting compared to someone like Orisa, right? The thing is, she's still got something unique going for her, though, because can you remember when they released Ashe? Or they announced Ashe, and everyone went, Bob is fucking sick, dude! Right? Like, there was still something you could point to on Ashe and go, holy shit, that's sick, right? Someone like Soldier doesn't have that. So that's one of the things with this kind of, like, iterative game. The new hero's always got to be big, they've got to be flashy, they've got to top the last hero in some way, right? So, it's gonna end up being this way. Because if we go to a different example, right? If we go to, like, I'm gonna talk about a MOBA. I know. So, League of Legends. 5v5 game. You don't need to worry about this. We got 5v5 game, right? Game started with Archer Woman, right? We've got Frosty Archer. She slows people with her ice arrows, and she's got a really big arrow that stuns you. Oh, it's pretty exciting, right? So that's like the starting point for that game. Now we are at the point where we have a hero that is a sentient magical cat that is partnered with a magical book. And the hero is not even on the field most of the time, because the cat attaches to a different hero. They then become untargetable, and now their abilities are stronger because they, in some way, key off of the person that you're attached to. You can now control your skill shot a little bit more precisely. Your heal now does 2 people instead of 1. We have gone fairly dramatically out from Frosty Archer Woman at this point, you know? And then the other thing is that, like, and I think this is more just like with people, as game developers get more used to the engine they're working with, they get more used to their community, they get more used to what sort of things, like, work in their game, they inevitably want to do something more exciting for the next one, right? Like, they're more acquainted with their technology, their everything, right? So, most of their technology, but they're more acquainted with just, like, this game. So, they inevitably want to start doing things that are more exciting. Because, I've already said, imagine if they released Soldier 76 now from our perspective, right? Imagine you're a hero developer, and you were working on Sigma a second ago, and now Jeff comes to you and says, I want you to make Call of Duty. Would you not be kind of bummed about that? You know? Would you not be like, oh, really? You just want me to make Assault Rifleman with a sprint? Like, fuck, dude, I just made a Robot Centaur a couple months ago, right? Like, holy shit, dude. So, I think that's the thing with power creep, is that, like, it's gonna happen. The most common thing is usually heroes over time get more mobile. Like, usually heroes at the start kind of, this is more MOBAs than Overwatch at this point in time, but usually they start getting more mobile, like, they start having more, like, dashes, blinks, things like that. Overwatch was already pretty fast, so this isn't really something that's happened here. That's usually what happens with this kind of game, though, is mobility creep happens more than movement creep, or power creep. Because also, the faster the rest of the heroes get, like, if you're a slow hero, and all the other heroes are mad fast, you have trouble keeping up with them a lot of the time, right? Like, they just fucking dash blink onto you, and you have to walk. You have your ice arrows, right? It's usually an issue for you. And then they start having to rework the older characters. It's a whole thing. Oh, another good example, Heroes of the Storm, also a MOBA, but, you know, that starts with someone like Raynor from, or Jimmy from StarCraft, who is Space Marine Man. He shoots his assault rifle at that bad man real good, and that's basically it. If he gets really low, he gets a nice big spike heal, you know? That's kind of it. That's Jimmy's thing. He clicks on the bad man real good. But then they release a hero called Cho'Gall. Cho'Gall is a two-headed ogre. Now, the thing is, with these two-headed ogres in Warcraft mythology, is the two heads are two different people, right? They're two different consciousness. So, Cho'Gall is a hero that is controlled by two people, because one person is each head. That's a pretty far away from Jimmy with his assault rifle, isn't it? Yeah, so anyway, I think power creep is kind of an inevitability of just this kind of thing. I got really off point again. Oh god, what a tangent-heavy episode we've got today. I think power creep's just an inevitability of life. The thing is that I don't really necessarily think that's a bad thing, because this is the general, like, thought process on why buffs are better than nerfs, right? Because if you're buffing things, things are only really getting cooler, right? Like, more awesome shit starts happening if lots of people are strong, right? Whereas if you nerf them, you've taken something away, there is now less possibility for cool stuff to happen, right? So I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. What I do think is that as the game progresses, it becomes very important to start looking at the older heroes and think if they need some kind of large-scale help in order to bring them back into the limelight again, right? This has been the case with League of Legends, where they now have an entire team that is dedicated to just, well, they did, I don't know if they're still doing this because they've kind of gotten through a lot of them now, but they have, had a team that was dedicated purely to reworking the older heroes. Because there's a lot of them, and the heroes from then don't match the way the game is now. So they need to be brought back into line with how the game has changed over time, right? It's the thing when we talk about reversing power creep, right? What that's fundamentally saying to me is we want the game to stay the exact same as it was on launch, pretty much, right? Like, we want things to stay as they were in the past. And, you know, clearly there's a market for that, because fucking look at WoW Classic, right? But, to me, I don't think we should be worrying about reversing power creep so much as we should be worrying about bringing... Because the game has just... If power creep has occurred, I think that just means the game has changed over time. And I think rather than trying to force the game back to how it was, we should be thinking about how we can bring the other aspects of the game in line with how they are now. That's just me. Feel free to disagree on that one, and I imagine a lot of people will disagree on that one, but I think that's a more productive thing to worry about, because fuck, I don't give a shit about WoW Classic, dude. Like, you gotta buy fucking arrows, dude. That's fucking lame as shit. Right? Like, I'm not about that. I'd rather we worry about, like, the game's changed, whatever. You know, sometimes the game's changed in a way that's worse, so, you know, that's something to wonder about as well. Like, what the game changed, did it change in a way that's good or a way that's bad? And you would, you know, the player base are usually the worst ones to ask about that. Because if you go up to most people and ask them, would you like thing to change, or would you like thing to stay as is? Virtually 100% of those people are going to say, I would like thing to stay how it is currently, please, and thank you. So anyway, that's my thought on it. I don't think we should be worrying about reversing power creep. I think we should be worrying about bringing heroes like Soldier in line with how the game is now, which is more exciting than Soldier 76. So, now I've answered the question. and we're still in the game, so we have to wait for this game to finish now. So I'm very excited, because they've shown us Gogeta at this point, and because they showed him off at TGS, kind of out of nowhere. Not many people were really expecting it. And Gogeta looks fucking sick, dude! I'm about it. The problem is that Gogeta, at least on paper, from what we've seen, looks like he's gonna be top tier. And I kind of don't like playing the top tier heroes. Like, I used to play Bardock, but Bardock became the tippy-toppiest of the top tier, so I don't really want to be just playing Bardock versus 20,000 other Bardocks, you know? And that was the point I switched over to 21 and Vegito instead. So I'm concerned that Gogeta is going to be too good, because then I'll feel bad using him. I was using, like, Super Saiyan 1 Goku for a while as well, but he also became extremely popular after some buffs, and I was like, I guess I'll use Vegeta instead. That's me. I'm weird that way, though. So, time successfully filled. So thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. I've started streaming on Twitch Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 8 p.m. EST till midnight EST. There's a link to the channel in the description. And if you've managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future. And I hope you found the video helpful.